By the time I reached the manor, the incense in my sleeves had gone cold. The sedan chair had left me at the foot of a long stone path, lined with dead camellia bushes and black pines that bent in the wind like old women listening at doors. At the top of the hill stood the house that had bought my marriage, a broad ancestral manor with shuttered windows, dark roof tiles, and no lanterns burning at the gate, though the sky was already bleeding into dusk. It did not look abandoned. It looked as though it had been waiting. An old woman stood beneath the front steps, with 2 servants behind her. She wore mourning gray and a jade ring thick as a coin, and when I stepped down and lifted my veil, her sharp eyes moved over my face with the cool concentration of someone inspecting silk. "You are prettier than the last one," she said. One of the servants lowered his gaze at once. I swallowed. "Madam." She clicked her tongue. "Not madam, grandmother. If you are going to marry my grandson, you may as well use the right title." Then she turned and began climbing the steps, as though nothing in that sentence required further explanation. I followed her into the manor, with the wedding tablet pressed against my palms. It was lacquered black, engraved with the name of the man I had come to marry. Han Sojin, eldest grandson of the Han family, deceased. Everyone in the district knew of the house on the hill. Everyone knew the old Han matriarch had outlived her son, outlived her daughter-in-law, outlived half the village's gossip, and was still trying to secure a bride for the grandson who had died before his wedding day. They said she had money enough to buy silence, and grief enough to sour milk. They said the girls who agreed to the arrangement never stayed long. Some fled before dawn. One climbed over the wall in her bare feet and ran 3 miles through the rain. Another lasted 4 nights and left screaming that something had breathed against her neck in the dark. My mother had cried when I signed the papers. My uncle had not looked at me at all. Debt made brave daughters of women who had never wanted to be brave. Grandmother led me through hall after hall until we entered the ancestral chamber. He was waiting there. Not in flesh, not in bone, not seated at the altar with a red sash over his shoulder, as living bridegrooms once had. He watched from an enormous portrait hung above the incense table, painted in rich, dark stripes that had somehow kept the sheen of his eyes. He looked young, perhaps no more than mid-20s, with long fingers resting against the carved arm of a chair, and a face too composed to be handsome in any easy way. His robes were black. His mouth was unsmiling. He had the kind of stillness that made the whole room feel arranged around him. I could not have said what made the back of my neck go cold. The realism, perhaps, or the dreadful feeling that he was not painted looking at me. He was simply looking. Grandmother took the tablet from my hands and placed it beside the altar. Bow. I bowed to the ancestors. I bowed to the floor. I bowed before the portrait, while the servants burned paper offerings and the incense thickened until it stung my eyes. When I rose, I could feel his gaze on my face, like the touch of a thumb testing fruit. Grandmother folded her hands into her sleeves. "The ritual lasts 7 nights. You will sleep in the east bridal chamber. You will not leave the manor grounds after sunset. You will greet your husband each evening before the incense burns down. You will not refuse him if he speaks to you." I stared at her. "If he speaks to me?" She gave me a look of mild irritation, as though I were already proving difficult. The others never stayed long enough to learn his manners properly. That was their failure, not his. "The others," I repeated. "The last one was skittish," she said. "Pretty but weak-hearted. Before her, there was a girl who talked too much and could not bear silence. A wife should not startle at every small thing." My throat tightened. "And if I do?" Grandmother's eyes lifted to the portrait. "Then you will leave as they did, and my grandson will remain unmarried, again, and the creditors return to take what belongs to them." I thought of my father, who went to the store and never came back. I thought about my greedy uncle, who used the deed to my home as collateral for his restaurant. I thought about my mother and my younger sister, who depended on me to make things right. Something in the room changed then. It was slight. The candles did not flicker. The doors did not slam. But the air drew close around my skin, cool and deliberate, as if someone had stepped up behind me and stopped just short of touching. Grandmother's mouth flattened. "You see," she said to the portrait, "this is why they run. You look at them too hard." I did not turn my head. After a moment, the pressure eased. That night, the bridal chamber was prepared as though for a wedding long delayed. Red candles burned on either side of the bed. A lacquered screen painted with cranes divided the room. My wedding robes had been laid out across a cedar chest, and beside them rested a man's black hair ribbon, folded with impossible neatness. I did not touch it. When the servants left, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house breathe. Old houses do breathe. Wood settles, paper screens whisper, wind creeps beneath eaves and drags its fingers over roof tiles. I told myself that was all I heard when footsteps crossed the corridor outside my room and stopped before the door. My hands tightened in my lap. The latch did not move. A voice said, very quietly, "You stayed." I rose so fast, the bed curtains trembled behind me. The room was empty. The voice came again, low and level, not from the walls, but from the shadow near the lacquered screen. "Do I frighten you already, wife?" No scream came out of me. My fear was stranger than that. It moved slowly, like ink bleeding through water, touching everything at once. "I have not agreed to call you husband," I said, and was ashamed of how thin my voice sounded. A pause followed. Then, with unmistakable amusement, "You bowed before my portrait 3 times. The shadow thickened. He did not emerge fully, and perhaps that was worse. I could make out the suggestion of a man in black robes, the pale line of the hand, the quiet gleam of eyes that had no business existing in darkness. "I did not ask for this marriage," I said. "Neither did I," he replied. "My grandmother is persistent." Despite myself, I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. It died quickly. It took one step forward. The candles shortened, though no wax fell. "The others left before the rites were complete," he said. "One would not enter this room. One fainted in the ancestral hall. One tried to pray me away while eating my family's pears." His gaze held mine. "You are the first who has spoken to me as though I might answer. You are dead." "Yes." He said it so simply that my fear changed shape. It did not lessen. It deepened. For the next 3 nights, I remained. I greeted him in the ancestral chamber at dusk. I sat with grandmother at supper while she complained about village daughters and their lack of discipline. I slept in the bridal room with the sound of his footsteps circling the bed and stopping just beside the curtains. He never touched me. He never begged. He never tried to coax sweetness from me with a living man's clumsy lies. He watched. He spoke when spoken to. Once when I asked, how had he died, he turned his face away and said, "Before my wedding, on the road home, a horse slipped in the rain." On the 5th night, I made the mistake of asking, "Did you love the woman you were meant to marry?" He stood beside the window, moonlight passing through the edge of him. "No," he said. "I never met her." "Then why do you need a bride so badly?" At that, he looked at me with such long, still focus that the candles guttered low. "My grandmother needs me settled," he said. "The ancestors need the rites completed. The house needs an heir it will never have." He came closer, and the cold of him slid over my wrists like bracelets. "But I," he said softly, "have grown tired of being left." The truth of it settled into me harder than any threat could have. That was why the house felt hungry. That was why the air tightened whenever I spoke of leaving. Not rage, not malice, abandonment. On the 7th night, grandmother dressed me herself. She pinned my hair with trembling hands that had once, I thought, likely fastened wedding crowns onto daughters now buried. She chose a deep red robe instead of mourning white, and tied the sash so tightly I could barely breathe. "Do not shame me tonight," she said. I met her eyes in the mirror. "And if I wish to go?" "Then go now," she replied. "Go while you still can." The words turned the inside of my mouth cold. In the ancestral chamber, the incense had already been lit. The portrait seemed darker than before, its painted shadows deeper, the mouth less distant. Grandmother stood back. The servants knelt with their foreheads to the floor. I bowed once. The room pressed in. I bowed twice. The candles went out. I lifted my head into darkness and heard him breathe, though there should have been no breath left in him. "Once more," he said. My legs would not move. In that pitch-black stillness, I understood, all at once, why the others had fled. It was not because he raged. It was because he waited. Because he spoke like a man and watched like a grave. Because if you stayed long enough to hear the loneliness in him, you could feel the house beginning to close its hand around your throat. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "If I finish this, what becomes of me?" The silence held for a beat. Then he answered, and there was no gentleness in it now. "You remain." Something in the dark brushed the side of my face. Fingers cold as river stones. Not asking, claiming. I should have run. Instead, I thought of the debt papers with my name on them. I thought of my mother's bent back. I thought of the village girls who had wept and fled and still woke, perhaps, with his eyes in their dreams. I thought of grandmother arranging brides for a dead man year after year, because love, in old houses, could rot into something harder than hunger. Then I thought of the emptiness that had lived in this manor before I arrived, and of the way he had said, "I stayed. Not you are kind, not you are brave, you stayed." I bowed the third time, the floor vanished beneath my feet. When I opened my eyes, the ancestral chamber lay on the other side of glass and varnish. Grandmother was kneeling now, her old shoulders shaking as she pressed her forehead to the floor. The servants did the same. The incense smoke curled upward in thin silver threads. Beside me stood Han Se-jun in full, no longer shadow, no longer half-formed, his black robes falling straight to the painted floor. He looked exactly as he had in the portrait, and far worse, because now his stillness carried heatless life. He raised a hand to my cheek. His thumb brushed the place he had touched in the dark. His expression did not change. "Do you hate me?" I looked past him at the room I had left behind. The candles were lit again. My body was nowhere on the floor. There was only the portrait now, and in it a bride in red, standing at the dead lord's side. Outside, the house had gone still with satisfaction. Slowly, I turned back to him. "No," I said. At that, his hand slid behind my neck, and when he bent to kiss me, the painted world closed around us like a door.